There was the recent Domino's ruling where Domino's got a lawsuit about their lack of accessibility on their mobile app and website, right? And I heard some people say, well, this is the fall of the internet because now they're going to force us to have accessible websites, right? Well, you could argue because we had to add wheelchair ramps to stores, it's the fall of architecture because we have to add wheelchair ramps. Not really, right? The Guggenheim still has fire extinguishers and emergency exits, and it's a beautiful building.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Victor Ramirez, the founder and managing director of an abstract agency. Victor, good to have you.
Thanks for having me, man.
Tell us a little bit about an abstract agency and what makes you unique.
I've struggled with this all the time, and it's always changing because the market's always changing. But the number one thing is we really focus on personalization education, which I find not a lot of agencies do well. They use a lot of different, vocabulary that just kind of dances around topics with clients. But I actually volunteer teaching high school kids to code, and I can actually explain, and my mom can explain every single marketing thing I do. And so it's kind of like stand-up comedy. I practice my routine. I talk to high school kids and I talk to my 70-year-old mother about what I do. And if she's getting it and if they're getting it, I think one of our clients can understand what we're talking about.
That's awesome. Personalization is one of those, helpful, sometimes scary words. Tell us, unpackage a little bit about the education that you provide to folks on personalization.
I think there's a lot of excitement around personalization and automation, but a lot of people, they either go too far and they want to automate everything before even having a business model, right? Or they personalize too quickly before even knowing if they should personalize their emails. It's very easy to send emails to a 1,000 person email list, and all you're personalizing is the names or maybe the location. But people will try to personalize that 1,000 person email list and break it down to 10 or 20 different groups, and you're sending only 1,000 emails. You don't need to do it at that point. And so I think it's kind of knowing when to personalize, when to automate, and that's what I work with clients. When I first started, clients would say, automate everything, personalize everything. And they'd have a 500 person list with maybe 3,000 daily visits. And I say, look, let's find out what works. Let's experiment with what content's out there. Let's experiment with assets you have. Because I think that's another thing. If someone has a single page application website, no blog, no social presence, and then they're worried about personalization and automation, I'll be honest with them and say, look, we can't work on that now. Let's talk about who your current customer is, who your best customer is, who you want that customer to be, and write content and create things so that then we can give them a personalized experience. But if that's not what you want to do, then you really can't do personalization. And that's kind of what I really educate clients about.
You've been in the digital marketing space for a while. Tell us a little bit about, the evolution that we've been on and where you think it's going in the future.
I actually can't tell you where it's going in the future, right? But I think it's more that what I learned in my time, and I've been doing this 7 years. And actually I guess I could argue I've been doing it 20 years, because when I was 15 years old, I was the first kid to send an email birthday invite, to the point all the parents printed it and put it on the fridge because they thought it was really cleverly written. And it had always been in bands and been an artist and doing marketing for myself. So I kind of knew what was good messaging and how to get people to come to a show and et cetera. So, but in the last 7 years, the most, what I saw change is really, you have to be dynamic. There will be agencies, or I've seen people invest $50,000 in a video studio and not have a single team member that really understands video. Or they'll build a video team of 5 people, and they'll hire 5 video, an editor, a shooter, someone who knows how to direct, but then they won't hire someone who's an art director or creative director. So I think the problem is they're building for something Facebook video 2 years ago was the hottest thing going. LinkedIn video was hot, and now video's not as hot, right? Now it's short, snappy, TikToks, et cetera. Whereas, and there's this trend now, there's a great book out about the future of generalists, how everyone used to hire for specialization, and now even economists are arguing that people need to study liberal arts and study these different things so they can dynamically change. And so I noticed that it's going away from specialization to generalization, but making sure those people who are generalists know how to pivot. And so if that 5-person video team with an art director, they could go from making a studio shoot like we have here to doing man on the street interviews very quickly, and they should be able to pivot, right? And so that's the same thing with advertising, websites, print, because print's hot now. Even Casper and all these companies are finding that their CPM on Facebook is more expensive, and the snail mail is doing better. And so how do you have an art director who understands, both print, video, and then if all of a sudden we go to eyeball computers, do they know what message to put on your eyeball? I don't want that, but who knows what's going to be in the future.
Right. You're super involved in the WordPress community here in New York, both with meetups and with helping to run WordCamp New York.
Yeah.
Why do you think? What is it about WordPress that sort of is really, really great for exactly what you're talking about? Agility, flexibility, all that stuff, and maybe superior to other CMSs.
WordPress, it's so easy to pick up that like my mom can use WordPress, the PTA can use WordPress, my students can use WordPress. And so by them, you almost have this like big ecosystem of people you can test a product on, right? And so if you're like a marketing company that focuses on nonprofits, if you run meetups or you have events, you build a plugin or free plugin that targets nonprofits, you can use that to attract them because those nonprofits know they want WordPress for its ease and flexibility. And then with that small startup that is having that nonprofit plugin, they have a big test base, like a huge base of users. And then, multiply that across all these different industries. And I like to, when I work with clients, I'll have a client who's like, we work in finance, we don't know anything. I go, well, are you aware of what they're doing over in publishing? Are you aware of what they're doing with WordPress over in affiliate marketing? Are you aware of what they're doing? And so we can kind of borrow from other industries. And so because you have so many different industries, niches, types of people working in it, it's great. Whereas other CMSs, it is either like really developer and product focused, and so you don't get like the moms and pops of the world who may be the next, look at Shark Tank, right? They might be the next doorbell, the next door that gets sold to Amazon. And that person, based on the community, they're probably gonna use WordPress.
Do you think the new editor experience, has helped that whole process?
I think the new editor experience has helped new people to WordPress. I think like all things, like people fear change. So it was such a radical change that people already using WordPress were a little agitated about it. But I think as people see what you can do with the new editor, then they're gonna get excited and like it. So back to the personalization thing with blocks or the new block editor, everything's a block and everything then can be manipulated. So if you have a title and 5 images on a page, you can make it so that only certain people from certain countries see certain images, certain people from certain accounts see certain images, people from Facebook and Twitter, they get a whole different set of images, right? And you couldn't do that with fields or like with and that's what WordPress was before. It was a field editor. And now it is, a robust UI live React editor.
So I'm kind of curious, you bring up Facebook and some of the other social media platforms. When you're working with clients, how do you ensure, or what's the discussion like when you say, hey, let's build this website, let's make sure it's your primary marketing asset versus these other social media platforms and kind of funneling audiences off to those platforms?
For that kind of stuff, I usually tell clients like Facebook shouldn't be your home, Facebook should be one of your channels, right? And sometimes that's hard because you have a client who they put a lot of money into Facebook and they have a good audience and they have it well targeted and they have it really tuned to where they're having a good ROI. But the one thing I try to tell clients is like, you are one regulation, you are one change of business away from having losing that channel, right? And so I actually keep like a little store of articles to share, Google killed Reader, Google killed Print Cloud, Google killed Photos, not Photos, Picasa, and then Facebook has killed all these initiatives, and those kind of things. If you're building on and even YouTube, I think, is the biggest example where they're changing the game, they're moving the goalpost all the time, and businesses and influencers can't keep up, right? Whereas a website, you control it and you own it. And even for myself, I kind of like drink my own Kool-Aid. If you Google Victor Ramirez, there's a U.S. senator, a state senator from Maryland who comes up, looks nothing like me. But if you Google Victor Ramirez WordPress or Victor Ramirez New York City, I own the first 3 or 4 pages, and it's videos of me speaking, conferences I've worked at, a lot of really great stuff about me. And the only way I was able to do that was my own website.
I love some of the things that an abstract agency does in terms of helping underserved high school students. Tell us a little bit about the education that you're providing to some of these students.
So 5 years ago, I was like 2 years into my professional career of, actually delivering, because I'd been doing websites since I was 15, but, really professionally engaged. And I was always looking for different opportunities. And someone posted a job looking for PHP developer. And I said, okay. And they were actually looking for a PHP developer to teach high school students for like an internship project. The internship didn't work out, but I ended up, for the students, but I ended up running a small boot camp with like 40 students for the summer. And so we were teaching the kids a mix of, it started originally with like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then some of the students move into WordPress, they move into React, they move into whatever they choose when they go to different organizations. I have one student who I've been mentoring for like 5 years, and he got a full ride scholarship to NYU. And even now he's like, hey, I'm on my senior project, and I need to, I build a Gatsby React application. And so I use that as an opportunity of, I want to learn some Gatsby React. Let's work on your project together. And we're kind of like each other's accountability buddies, right? And it makes it so smooth. And so, so the students, they start with like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but that's only 50% of the work. The other 50% that these nonprofits that I work with, Code Nation, I work with All Star Code, I work with Black Girls Code, those programs, the other 50% is professional development. So teaching students how to learn, because what we teach them might not be relevant, right, in 10 years. Teaching them how to act professionally, how to network, how to say, hey, look, these 20 students in the room with you, you may be shy now, but add them on LinkedIn, and if they have success and you work well with them now, they'll remember you when they have that success. And so, we're building our own alumni network here, right? So for a lot of the clients we work with, if we work with a nonprofit or like certain startups, we'll ask them if they will accept a student intern. The students, they get paid anywhere from $10 to $20 an hour, which isn't a ton of money, but it's great money if you're in college. But the students
and it's experience.
Yeah, and great work experience. And it's been a really great, experience like working and having students on those projects.
Victor, one of the questions we love asking our guests is a book, blog, podcast that you'd like to recommend to our viewers.
That book, Narrative Economics by Schiller from Yale. And it sounds like a really egg-heady, weighty book because it's by a professor from the Yale School of Economics, but that's not what it's about. What the book is about is understanding how economic, scientific, all these engineering, technology stories are being, so to speak, spun by journalists and by people who may not have a command of the topic. And it's our responsibility as the eggheads of the world to know how to communicate properly and to have a narrative so that way, one, not only are we controlling the narrative, but we're also guiding the narrative to where it needs to be.
Thanks, Victor. That was Victor Ramirez, Managing Director and founder of An Abstract Agency.